Hey everyone, I wanted to talk about coasting and kind of what happens when we start coasting, how we make some of the transitions to feeling really bad, to starting to feel better where we can operate again. Maybe we're back at work, we're going to the gym again, and we're reading the books on the reading list, and how we can get stuck in that. And then when we realize there's more to it and we want to feel better or more than that, I have a lot of people that come on calls and they put a lot of work in. They say to me, hey, look, I feel like I'm coasting. I feel like I'm still doing compulsions. I want to talk about my experience with that. I think it's really important to show you where I went wrong and how I really lied to myself in many ways, knowing that there was more work to be done, but I just was afraid to put more work in because I just was very comfortable with feeling how I was, which was coasting along, and that's why Rob termed the coin coasting. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this. If you're struggling with coasting, please email us at phil@ocdrecovery.com. We'll answer you in a timely fashion and fit you in as soon as we can. We're very busy, but we get people in as quickly as we can because we understand the severity of chronic OCD suffering, which we tend to work with really the most chronic OCD sufferers out there. So when I first started suffering with OCD, which was about chronically, it was June of 2019. When I started to get better, which was the back end of 2020, so a year and a half later, and that's because I really kind of, there's no other way to say it, I fucked around for a while, and I didn't put the work in, and I was really lazy about a few things. When I started to get better, in the middle of 2021, I was in a really good spot for a really long time, and although I was still doing really subtle behaviors that were holding me back, I felt great. I barely had any anxiety. I felt really good all the time. I felt like I was on top of the world, and I got a real big high off that. And that's a natural thing. I mean, when you've made really low money maybe for a while and you've been on poverty line and you start making double or 3 times your income, you might think you're amazing until something in your life happens and you fall back down again. You take a big hit to your income and you're like, you get in that depressive mood again, which is understandable. So, there was a point in my journey where I actively knew there was things I was doing that were not good for me. And now that was a lot of compulsive lying. I still was lying a lot. I've always struggled with lying. So I've struggled a lot with lying from a conditional self-acceptance standpoint, which is the reason why most people lie, is because they're afraid of rejection, afraid of being judged, etc. I really struggled with really subtle avoidance behaviors with my body dysmorphia. Not wanting to go out of my way. That was a little bit too strenuous because I was still afraid of losing muscle and not being attractive and all that stuff. I think a lot of people struggle with that, regardless of what you look like, based on the fear of rejection. I had a really difficult time controlling my emotions all the time. So I still went 0 to 100, a moderately amount, nothing like it was in the past. I wasn't getting out of the car and screaming at people in the car, highway anymore, and all the crazy stuff I did in my early 20s. But there was still a lot of stuff I needed to change that I was very adamant about. I can leave this stuff here, and I think I can get away with it, not really working on it. And then what happened was, as time went on, I got more and more stuck again, and there really came a point where I realized there's no way to recover from OCD in any way I could see it, besides taking on board really what Rob says in OCD recovery and everyone that came before me, and that's really getting underneath your fears at your worst case scenario. I couldn't see a way where that was possible any longer. And that really, really, really frustrated me, because what I did, what a lot of people do, is I put the work in, I've read the books, I've already done so much, why do I deserve to have this? I don't have to put any more work in, I've already suffered enough. A lot of that conditional life acceptance and deservingness and fairness, but I realized that there was more work to be done. So what I did was I jumped back into the fire again, which is common for many people who've been coasting for a while. And the biggest mistakes I made was rereading all the books again. I thought that was a big mistake in the way I was coming from it. So I was coming from the perspective, I'm going to move my wheel a little bit, turn my car on, since my car will turn off. I have a busy schedule over the next couple of days, so I'm going to have to make some of the YouTube videos in the car. And, I jumped to the books again, which I think is a mistake. Nothing wrong with rereading the books, but I think when you're doing it out of a moment of panic, 0 to 100, it's probably a really bad idea. I had to work on reasons on why I was lying so much, and I was lying so much because I still was very afraid of rejection, as much as I didn't want to admit that. I had to stop changing things around, subtle compulsions in my exercise routine. I had to dig a little bit deeper into the fear of rejection, which I thought was really, really strong, and I didn't address it as much as I thought I did. when it came to like subtle avoidance behaviors with food and wanting to time things a little bit more meticulously than I thought I was doing. I had a degree of it. I think you all can relate to this. Part of you knows when you're doing something incorrectly. And you might be thinking every once in a while, I think I can get away with this. And the reason why you say that is, I think, and I always use the hard drug analogy because it puts it into a good perspective, I believe. If you have done 10 grams of cocaine a day for 5 years, and then you're placed to a point where you're doing a gram of cocaine every other day, you conceptually understand you're not nearly doing as much cocaine as you used to, but you're still doing cocaine. So you still have a problem. And when it comes to OCD and anxiety recovery, when you're seeking reassurance and venting, even if it's just once or twice a month, you're still putting that hard drug into your body, which is fueling the OCD and anxiety cycle. And that really was something that held me back quite a bit. So I had to realize that there was things I had to work on. It wasn't going to come easy. And I had to get really uncomfortable again. I took this from a moderator who doesn't do videos anymore because they went on their life. And I was talking to someone a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and they said, you have to accept that when you jump back into a fire or something along the lines of that, when you have a relapse or a setback, that relapse or setback can last 6 months, a year, whenever it is, and try not to put any labels on that and just kind of take it day by day, and that's what I had to do. And that was a very difficult thing for me because I was really upset at myself. Number one, I had a secondary problem where I was berating myself. Nick, why didn't you know any better? Well, you're so stupid, you should have known better. And then I had the anger, which is the tertiary problem, and yelling at myself for not listening to myself the first time. But really the core thing was I just didn't address my beliefs as deep as I thought, which is a common thing for us. There were still behaviors that needed to change. So I always recommend to people in the coaching calls, if you're in that coasting position right now, which many of you are, take a very hard look at the things you think you have to change. It is important to state that you're never going to get certainty on things. You're never going to know, is this a compulsion? Is that a compulsion? You do have to lean in with uncertainty on that. And I always tell people how I leaned in with uncertainty on that was I said to myself, I'm just going to do things. I don't have to make changes every single day and kind of see how things play out. And I had to really slow that process down. I had a very difficult time of taking my foot off the gas, but eventually it was the best thing for me. So if you believe you're in the coasting state right now, take a look at the beliefs. Do you think you hold those beliefs as strongly as maybe you think you do? If not, remember, acceptance that you can't accept right now. That's a key part. Start making some more behavioral changes. You don't have to necessarily jump back to the books on the reading list. If you haven't read all the books on the reading list, which many people have not, make it a priority. I think that's very important. If there's some big exposures you're putting off, because it goes the other way too. Some people are doing really well when they're coasting, but there's like that largest exposure they've been putting off. So it's kind of mimicking the reality that they've made more progress than they actually have. I see this a lot with all OCD sufferers where they're no longer in a relationship. So they have the idea that they're doing a lot better than they are. They get back into another relationship or they start dating someone more seriously again, then everything goes to hell, and that's how it goes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about this. Just remember that coasting is a place where many people stop working on recovery. I was this individual. Momo was, I'm sure, too, and Phil and all the other moderators. You can make more progress, but it does take more effort. So thank you again. And if you're struggling with coasting, please reach out to Phil@OCDrecovery.com, and we'll get back to you in a timely fashion. Thank you so much, everyone. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.